Hello and welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on News 6 World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. US President Donald Trump threatened escalating tariffs on key European allies unless the US is allowed to buy Greenland. Duties would start at 10% on February 1st and rise to 25% by June. European leaders have rejected the demand, warning it could damage NATO unity, derail trade deals, and deepen transatlantic tensions. Syrian government forces advanced into Kurdish-held areas near the Euphrates, taking Tabqa and key dams despite US calls to stop. Kurdish-led SDF accused the army of violating a withdrawal deal and warned it would fight to hold remaining towns and oil fields. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has accused President Trump of fueling deadly protests that has killed over 3,000 people so far. Khamenei has called Trump a criminal, while Iran blamed the unrest on US and Israeli interference amid mass unrests and internet shutdowns. EU and Mercosur leaders have signed the landmark free trade agreement in Paraguay after 25 years of negotiations, paving the way for what would become the EU's largest ever trade deal. The accord covers the EU with Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay, but still requires approval from the European Parliament. New York City Mayor Mamdani has appointed Tricia Shimamura as the city's new Parks Department Commissioner, tasking her with managing more than 30,000 acres of land. Mamdani has praised Shimamura's decade-long record of public service, while Shimamura has called the role an honor and vowed to make a difference. According to official results reported by Ugandan media, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has won a seventh term with 71.65% of the vote, defeating opposition leader Bobi Wine, who won 24.70%. Wine is expected to reject the outcome, alleging an unfair election marred by an internet shutdown as tensions remain high following protests and security crackdowns. According to IMF statements, the International Monetary Fund has approved a $261 million disbursement for Ethiopia after completing the fourth review of its 48-month extended credit facility, bringing total IMF support under the program to just over $2.18 billion. Elon Musk is demanding up to $134 billion from OpenAI and Microsoft, claiming they profited from his early funding and support. The companies call the claim baseless as the case heads to trial in April. Now for this hour, we start with the United Kingdom's Prime Minister Keir Starmer has made it clear that the future of Greenland is a matter only for the Greenlanders, and Denmark, stressing that Greenland is an integral part of the Kingdom of Denmark. He has also reiterated the importance of Arctic security, emphasizing that it's a shared concern for NATO and that allies need to work together to counter Russian threats across the Arctic. Further, he has criticized the idea of applying tariffs on Greenland's allies, vowing that he will address this issue with the U.S. administration. Moving to the United States, White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, Stephen Miller, has supported U.S. President Donald Trump's views on Greenland. According to Miller, Greenland is crucial for America's national security, with the polar regions emerging as a new frontier for international competition, particularly in terms of resources and control of navigation rules. Let's listen in.
Greenland is essential for America's national security. The new domain of international competition is going to be polar competition. That is where more and more resources are being spent by our nation's adversaries and rivals, is the ability to control movement, navigation, lanes of travel in the polar and Arctic regions.
Moreover, Miller has also said that the U.S. should control Greenland, insisting that Denmark simply cannot defend the semi-autonomous territory. Let's again listen to his comments.
with respect to Denmark, Denmark is a tiny country with a tiny economy and a tiny military. They cannot defend Greenland. They cannot control the territory of Greenland. Under every understanding of law that has existed about territorial control for 500 years, to control a territory, you have to be able to defend a territory, improve a territory, inhabit a territory. Denmark has failed on every single one of these tests.
Now for this, we welcome Mr. Eric Lemko. He's a senior journalist, joins us live from Georgia. Thank you very much, Mr. Lemko, for joining us. Welcome to News X World. Now, as tensions escalate and Trump is very insisting on eyeing Greenland and acquiring Greenland, what more can you tell us and share with us on this news?
Well, as we know, President Trump is pretty adamant about obtaining Greenland in some sort of form of way. He has mentioned military intervention. He has mentioned purchasing Greenland. He has mentioned brokering a deal to obtain Greenland. I'm not sure which way it is going to be the most formidable way. I don't believe we will go in and take it militarily. I think that would be a diplomatic disaster to do it that way. However, I do think that President Trump uses that the kind of the mantra that he emits across the world, that he will do anything to his advantage to kind of leverage Europe and especially Denmark to take his calls a little more seriously. So I do think that there's an advantage there for President Trump. Do I think that Denmark is going to come off of Greenland that easily? No, I do not. I think they're going to hold on to it for as long as they can. Mr. Miller did make some very, very good points that Denmark is basically doing nothing with that whole land mass. That land mass is exponential to the defense of not only the United States but to Europe as well. With Russia having an already existent military presence in the Arctic, we need something up there to counter that and to start to build a defense system up there. And I think that with Europe not really investing the funds to do it, with Denmark not having the ability to fund that, I do think that they should allow the United States to obtain that land mass and turn it into a strategic strong point. It would be the same as having like a global high ground to kind of see down on what specifically Russia is doing.
Right. And do you think, so some of our American guests have suggested that instead of eyeing Greenland and acquiring another mass territory, they should increase funding and protect Alaska more. What's your take on that?
I mean, I definitely think that Alaska is a focal point. Do I think the United States has the ability to do both? Yes, we do. Alaska has always been a very a strategic spot for the United States. With it, in the wintertime, you could pretty much walk across the ocean in from Russia to Alaska. So that's how close we are to a danger zone, where if Russia really wanted to cause some damage, that would be a very ideal entry point for them. Have they done it? I mean, we do see submarine action. We see bomber action. China and Russia do joint operations up in that region a lot. So there's a lot of military action going on in that area. So it is something that I think the United States, we've already been paying close attention to. We have several Air Force bases there already. So do I think we need to do a whole lot more to Alaska? I mean, there's always room for improvement, but I think we have a lot of military installations there already that we can defend our homeland.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lemko, for staying with us and sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic. Now, protests in Greenland have gathered on Saturday to express opposition to U.S. President Donald Trump's demands that the Arctic island be ceded to the U.S. Led by Prime Minister Hans Fredrik Nielsen, hundreds of demonstrators marched in the capital of Nuuk, carrying flags and banners heading towards the U.S. consulate. Let's now hear from the protesters in Greenland.
Of course, we are not for sale. We are a free people. We have always been a free people. We have never had wars. We have togetherness in our mindset. We take care of each other. And that's something actually a lot of other countries in the world could learn from us, that we take care of each other and protect each other. So that's why we're here.
We have always welcomed collaboration with the outside world and with the US, and now we are talking about being occupied or bought. It is unacceptable, and it affects the people of Greenland. As you can see today, it has a lot of resonance with them. They want to show their disgust with this.
Meanwhile, in Denmark, similar protests were held. Organizers estimated that over 20,000 people took part in the protest, a crowd that is equivalent to the entire population of Nuuk. Police did not provide an official count, but other demonstrations also took place across Denmark. Let's now listen into what the protesters have shared.
It's a very bad feeling. You have one guy who wants to take over our country. It's our country. It's a place where we were raised and born. People lived in Greenland. Right now, children, they don't sleep at nights. People don't sleep at nights. Our family, our friends, everybody is anxious in Greenland right now. We are not, as one of the politicians said, we are not numbers. We are people. And we are a part of NATO. We are a part of Denmark. The Kingdom of Denmark, has always supported the United States when they have been in problem. And right now, they are saying thank you to us in this way.
It's very important that we stay together and show that Greenland is not for sale, and we will not like to be, and we can all won't be annexed by USA. So we stand together, and we are really happy and such that we have so much support from all of the places in the world, also here in Copenhagen.
Now we welcome back Mr. Erik Lemko. He's a senior journalist, joins us live from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you very much, Mr. Lemko, for staying with us. Now, you know, as you rightfully mentioned in our earlier discussion, that in US, people don't think that Trump will actually physically send military, etc., to acquire Greenland. However, it seems like a lot of people in Greenland and also Denmark, they don't think so. Do you think they're taking it so serious, not because it's maybe not because President Trump said it, but because President Trump said it right after doing what he did in Venezuela regarding Nicolas Maduro?
Yeah, so Trump is very strategic. Trump is an excellent chess player on the global stage. So when President Trump says things like this in the manner that he says it, and with the timing when he says it, it does add up to a strategy. And I think it's well noted that, you know, he strategically brought that up at that specific time to say, hey, I've already done this. Now we're looking to do this. And so Greenland is a focal point. I think it's a top focal point. He talked about Greenland in his first term. So this is something that I believe that President Trump does want to get done. What I think, knowing, paying attention to Trump's patterns of how he kind of governs the United States, is I see a deal. He's got a high price right now, you know, a high negotiation tactic. I do think that he will settle for something less, which could be, you know, getting together with Denmark and developing a joint coalition military installation that NATO and the United States can use at will to defend against foreign enemies. So I think that's where the more ballpark of what we're looking at, something, a compromise. I do think Greenland is going to be in play. It's just going to matter of how that works out.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lemko, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we move the focus on to Minneapolis. Opposing protests have erupted in Minneapolis as anti-ICE demonstrators have rallied against the Trump administration's efforts to target undocumented migrants, while a counter-protest organized by conservative influencer Jake Lang has drawn supporters of ICE. Lang was surrounded by counter-protesters before being escorted out by authorities as some in the crowd followed and shouted. He was later seen walking with visible blood as police attempted to move him through the area. Minneapolis police has warned people to clear the streets and attempted to control the crowd. Counter-protester James Hale said Lang had been instigating tensions in recent days and accused his supporters of escalating confrontations, adding that counter-protesters were there mostly to be peaceful. Other demonstrators said they were protesting what they described as the occupation of their city and broader political ideologies that they oppose. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Eric Lemko. He's a senior journalist, joins us live from Atlanta. Thank you very much, Mr. Lemko, for staying with us. What more can you tell us about this escalating news in Minneapolis in particular?
Well, Jake Lang is already a well-known influencer here. He was part of the January 6th arrest when that happened. So he's already very well known, and everyone watches his channels to see what he does. He's a very right-wing, intense. I would call him kind of a provocateur. He does get a little extreme at times, and so he's already, when he shows up to this anti-ICE protest, and he's coming to support ICE and to do all these things, that crowd already does not like him. So to find out that he possibly was stabbed today in that crowd, it doesn't surprise me all that much, considering what the major media here is calling peaceful protest. It's all but peaceful protest. We're seeing more and more violence as the day goes on. Every time I check the news, there's a new violent outburst that happens up there. So I think this is it. We're seeing a day-by-day escalation of these protests up there. I think we're going to end up getting to the point where they're going to force President Trump's hand to enact the Insurrection Act. Most likely, I would say probably by next week we'll be seeing that. Just a prediction.
Right.
But with Jake Lang stabbing, that I think that is something that he was there to get a reaction, and he got a reaction, and he got stabbed. So
yeah. Thank you for highlighting that. We will be eyeing that. Thank you very much. With that, I would like to thank Mr. Lemko for joining us today from Atlanta and sharing that insight throughout our news. Now we move the focus on to Syria. The US has announced that it has conducted a lethal strike in Syria on an Al-Qaeda affiliate leader. It has said that it had direct ties to an ISIS attacker who killed 3 Americans in early December. According to the U.S. Central Command, Bilal Hassan al-Jassim had direct ties to an ISIS gunman who killed and injured U.S. and Syrian personnel on December 13th in Palmyra, Syria. Since the December 13th attack, the U.S. has been retaliating against ISIS following the deadly ambush through a series of strikes under the campaign titled Operation Hockey Strike, with the U.S. military saying it has hit more than 100 ISIS targets. The U.S. has announced that it has conducted lethal strike in Syria on an Al-Qaeda affiliate leader it says had direct ties to an ISIS attacker who killed 3 Americans in early December. According to the U.S. Central Command, Bilal Hassan al-Jassim had direct ties to an ISIS gunman who killed and injured U.S. and Syrian personnel on December 13th in Palmyra, Syria. Since the December 13th attack, the U.S. has been retaliating against ISIS following the deadly ambush through a series of strikes under the campaign titled Operation Hawk Strike. Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar. He's an international relations expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General Doctor, for joining us once again. Good to see you. Now thank you. Now looking at this, how do you think U.S. Do you think this is a successful operation that they have ambushed through series of strikes in Syria on called Operation Hawkeye? And also, why were they targeted? Do we know anything about that as well?
You see, what is happening in Syria is
Yes.
that Syria today is fragmented, and there is no single control being exercised by the Syrian government in the entire region. Because if you have a look at this Syrian way actually they have been organized, we find that Syrian government is primarily in the central Syria. It has got the control, and the Syrian National Army, which is Turkey backed, that is in the northern areas. The Syrian defense forces, which are basically supported by the US, they are basically on the northeast part of Syria, and the ISIS is scattered all over in this region. So what is happening is that the ISIS is looking for an opportunity to target US forces in whatever manner they can, and that is why the CENTCOM of the US, which is operating in this area, one of their patrols was ambushed, and this is not the first time it has happened. In Syria, the US forces have been at loggerheads with the ISIS. Earlier also, there have been strikes carried out by the US forces on the ISIS, and this was for the first time after the fall of Assad that we saw that such a strike has taken place on a US patrol, in which I believe 2 US soldiers have been killed, and the tolerance level of the United States with regard to their own casualties is very, very less. So whenever we see a strike like this happening on the American unit forces, there is a heavy retaliation carried out by them onto the ISIS elements there. And if you look at the pattern in the last 1 year or so, I've got some statistics, more than 100 ISIS infrastructure and weapon sites have been struck by the US. So when you start targeting the ISIS infrastructure in this area, you are bound to have retaliatory strikes on part of the ISIS onto the US forces which are operating in this area, and especially the CENTCOM, as I actually mentioned to you. So these are actions which are taken by these insurgent groups to also send a message to the United States that they are also relevant, they are also a sizable strength, and they can also retaliate in case the US decides to strike their bases. So I think overall, if we look at Syria today, Syria is a contested zone, and we find large areas in Syria today. If you look at the southern part of Syria also, where the Golan Heights are there, we are finding the Israel domination on that side. Eastern side, I already told you, the US-backed forces are there. Northern side, Turkish elements are there. On the northwestern, you read the central part of Syria is the predominance of the Syrian government. So considering this kind of fragmentation, I think these incidents are likely to occur time and again.
We will be eyeing that. Thank you very much, retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar, for joining us today and sharing that insight with us on NewsX World. Now we move the focus on to Pakistan. At least 3 people were killed and more than 20 injured after a massive fire tore through a shopping mall in central Karachi. The blaze broke out late Saturday night at Gul Plaza on Ma Jinnah Road, starting on the ground floor and spreading rapidly upwards. More than 20 fire engines, including city, provincial, and Navy units, battled the flames through the night. Rescue teams evacuated trapped people as the fire burned into early Sunday. The injured and dead people were taken to civil hospital. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. Now we move on to our space news. NASA's Mega Moon rocket, the Space Launch System, has arrived at the launch pad in Cape Canaveral, Florida. This marks a major milestone in the final preparations for Artemis II, the first crewed mission to the moon in over 50 years. The 98-meter-tall rocket was carried vertically over a 4-mile journey, taking almost 12 hours to reach launch pad 39B at the Kennedy Space Center. Now in position, the rocket will undergo final tests, checks, and a dress rehearsal before the go-ahead is given for the 10-day mission. The earliest possible launch date is February 6th, with additional windows through March and April. Artemis II will see 4 astronauts take a journey around the moon, laying the groundwork for future lunar missions. While Artemis II will not land on the moon, the mission will provide valuable data and insight for the Artemis III mission, which is scheduled for 2027 or possibly 2028. The mission's crew will reportedly spend the first 2 days in Earth's orbit before traveling 250,000 miles to the moon, spending 3 hours observing and studying the lunar surface. This research is expected to help plan for a future landing at the moon's south pole. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.